You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs.
We are back. We are here with Sagittarius Cosmic Energy Report. A few big things, Andrea. Number one, this is episode 100 over on Emily and Her Stars, Things That Make You Go Woo. I had every intention of doing an amazing solo episode between, the whole reason I started the podcast way back in 2021. It didn't happen. So I'm very excited to be able to celebrate this episode with you.
Oh, congratulations. That's huge. 100 episodes. That's so exciting. And what an honor to be a part of that with you. I feel like Sagittarius is good energy for that, for 100, for a celebration. Who loves a celebration more than a Sagittarius?
Who doesn't love a party? So yeah, thank you for being here with me. Thank you to all of the listeners and all of Andrea's listeners who put up with me each week. And yeah, I've just so enjoyed doing this journey with you and having you along for probably 80% of the podcast's history, not just the last few years. So thank you for everything. And yeah, it's a momentous occasion to celebrate. So
It is. That is exciting. I do feel like if we weren't doing these episodes, I wouldn't have a podcast right now. So I'm very grateful that we do this each month and that we get to connect with the listeners and see what's going on with them as well. I feel like it is a group journey that we've been on, even though it feels like the first time every time we record one of these.
every time. So let's talk a little bit about how everyone has survived or is surviving Scorpio. Of course, as we're recording this, there is thankfully only a day left before we finally move into Sagittarius. And I appreciate, I was going to say I love Scorpio. I appreciate Scorpio. How about that? We'll start there. How are you surviving Scorpio?
I agree. I appreciate it. I think that we need it to process all of the other things. And I think for me, it's been kind of like a quick season just because I've had a lot going on. But I do feel like I've had some really deep thoughts, some really deep like ponderings of like what I want to do and like where certain energies are coming from. And I think that sort of like deep dive energy definitely came through for me, where it maybe wasn't doing a lot of things, but I was really deep diving on a few things that I knew I needed to investigate for myself. So um, I would say it hasn't been the easiest of seasons, but that is to be expected with Scorpio. How about you?
Yeah, I think much needed, not necessarily approved. Someone was talking the other day about the fixed water energy of Scorpio. And it's like, what's been frozen in ice? What are we looking to break free from? What's the thing that's been frozen and hidden in the shadows that now it's time to melt and release? And I think more than a lot of past Scorpio seasons, and maybe it's because it came after the eclipses that sort of cracked the ice and brought things to the surface, that this has been a very transformational Scorpio season for a lot of people. I also think this is the last pass with Uranus opposite Scorpio for the next 80 years. So it's like, what have you learned from this last 7 years? Are you integrating it emotionally? Are you willing, to look behind the curtain at the pieces that you're not necessarily willing to admit or willing to let go of? For me, it's been some of that last throes of shadow work of like, okay, yes, I've been doing the work. I see it coming up again. I recognize my old friend. And I can also celebrate in some ways that I'm revisiting it now from a higher perspective, from the next level. It's a lot. It's a lot of conflicting, how do I want to say this, viewpoints, revisiting yourself, looking at things from multiple perspectives. And yeah, it just feels like a really nice, long, good, deep therapy session.
Yeah, I do feel like Scorpio and therapy walk hand in hand. I do think that they are a necessary partnership. And I think that actually is a really kind of interesting lens to think about because really with Scorpio, doing the deep dive and learning about yourself and having that dedicated time for it is, I think, necessary. And, with therapy, it's not really successful unless you do that deep dive. You can't really move forward unless you're willing to look at the truth. And I think maybe the fact that this does come after an eclipse season, I think a lot of people had a lot more that they needed to bring to therapy. Sometimes it's like you're just talking about your day to day or like working through regular stuff. But I think people had a long list this year. I think there were a lot of people doing some soul searching. That's the term that's coming forward for me is like soul searching right now.
I think that's a great description. We come out of Libra season, which is so fair and balanced and seeking beauty and harmony and we can see the potential of that in so many things. And then it's like, what is the actual reality to get there? And that's where Scorpio kind of throws us on the floor with a reality gut punch. You were talking about like the going to therapy with the list of things. And I was like, if Santa Claus existed in Scorpio season, right? It would be very different. We'd take our laundry list of notes to Santa to say, I need to move through all of these things. So anyway, I don't know why that came to my head, but that was pretty funny. And thankfully we do have Sagittarius energy moving in afterwards that gives us that moment of celebration and almost poor Sagittarius. I'm gonna pick on you a little bit, and I don't mean to, but there can be an emotional disconnect sometimes because it's like we've gone so deep for so long and we're all sick of it. And it's like we got to get back to just enjoying the sparks of life, right? That fire comes in and it's like burn through the emotion. That's great. It bounced off of me. I'm still running 100 miles an hour towards my dreams and my visions and my travel and what else is out there. So I think it'll be interesting this year for Sagittarius. It feels for the first time in several years since we've been recording like a true Sagittarius season. We've had, I remember last year, or maybe it was even the year before now, we talked about how watery some of them have been. But this one in particular, we're going to get a good, strong spark of pure Sag energy. And I think it might surprise you. One, in how quickly you may burn out because you're going to feel really good and you're going to be heading towards those good things. Spoiler alert, Andrea said she pulled some good cards and she was like, I don't know. I don't trust it. But I also think that, we can learn how to sort of ride the highs and the lows by finding that middle land. And that's kind of where we need to keep realism intact, which isn't to say, you know, rub the peaks down or fill in the valleys and not experience them, but to understand that a more natural state rides somewhere in the middle. And I'm hopeful that that will be some of what comes through in Sagittarius season. So it is the mutable sign. It is fire. It holds on to the end of fall, but it ushers in this incredible excitement that I always feel encapsulates that true holiday spirit, which is more of everything. More is more. More is great. Let's do it all. More parties, more food, more hors d'oeuvres, more travel, more glitter, more lights. It loves it all. It's not going to say no to anything. And because it's mutable, it'll change its mind, go in 7 different directions and just kind of very happily not have a care in the world. So we need that. I think after this ass kicking of 2025, allow yourself to fully embrace that energy. Just remember that you can get a bellyache if you have too much cheese. You can burn the candle too brightly at both ends and exhaust yourself. And to not go immediately into people pleasing or into expectations. There's going to be a real big highlight coming the middle of December, like maybe a week and a half before Christmas. That's like, look, you can do all of these things, but at what cost to yourself? So maintaining, like I said, that equal balanced feeling of putting yourself on that to-do list, not throwing yourself out to make everybody else's expectations and dreams come true, and just keeping things a little more real. I guess that would be the theme of Sagittarius, keeping it real.
I like that. I think it goes really well with the card. Again, I picked good cards and I was picking them apart even when we were sitting here kind of going over our notes like separately. I was just like, I don't know. I like it, but I always say that with a question mark. It's true Capricorn energy. Like, do we need to party that much? I don't know. I am party pooper adjacent, as we've said many times on this podcast. But I think something I was just feeling when you were talking about, where Scorpio and Sagittarius land in the year, and I think because Sagittarius comes between Scorpio and Capricorn, I will say as a Capricorn, I feel like I also vibe with Scorpio energy quite a bit. Like I think it's my most similar energy of like when I go through the signs, I think I feel most similar to it. I have Scorpio placements too, so maybe that's why. But the fact that Sagittarius comes in between, it sort of does break up that energy where it's like, you do have to do the deep dive. Then you need, it's like any, even if you were working on a project, you're doing the deep dive, you're doing the research, you kind of have to walk away, go do something, and then come back and say, okay, now realistically, in this Capricorn energy, how do I organize these thoughts? What do I do with this information? But you need that break in between because otherwise you're going to be taking it too seriously. You're going to be looking too close to it and you're not going to see the big picture, right? Like Sagittarius is kind of like the step back and let's just, vibe a little bit and see where it lands, and I think we do need that. Like Emily said, we all need that energy sometimes to just enjoy ourselves, not to overindulge. We know Capricorn's coming to look at your list and take a real good look at what's happening. But I think we need something to break up that energy and to sort of like let it land a little bit. And, considering some of us are coming up from the ashes of Scorpio season, we need to relight the fire, this tower moment. We're in the tower week right now as we're recording. And it's like, yeah, we have to start again, but in the meantime, we can dance in the rubble and see what comes. And I think that this year more than ever, we need the Sagittarius energy. We need the glitter. I had a hot chocolate last night. I was like, I need to get in the energy. I need something to shift this like doom and gloom energy we've been in for so long. Obviously, like Emily said, we're not going to ignore the things that are happening. We're not saying that there are things that are, bad things that we are just going to ignore that and say they're not happening. But at the same time, do we need to be in that energy all the time? Can we not lighten up a little bit and take some time to enjoy the people and the things we have around us in holiday season? So I'm looking forward to it. Skeptically as usual, but I am looking forward to it.
One of the things that came up while you were talking was that, Sagittarius is the sign of the archer. And in the last few years, I've really sat with the idea that Sagittarius is also in some ways connected to Chiron, that wounded healer energy. Because truly that's what we're meant to lean into. Yes, it may be painful and I can still celebrate. I can still use that energy to propel me in some way. And what's interesting is Chiron is finishing its tour of Aries and will be moving into Taurus starting next year. So that's going to bring a different type of energy. And, we're really culminating so many things. We talked about how this is the year of the snake and the 9, which is also the 10, which is also the 0, and that placement of like holding. And I feel more than ever that we didn't really start 2025's energy. Like it was so slow in coming. We had that Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde. We didn't really hit the ground running until like May, June, it felt like. And through all of this condensed time through the summer and fall, it's like, okay, I can see the patterns that are coming up again. We can see where, we're maybe entering this lesson from a new perspective. But I feel like December more than anything is kind of this culmination point of how are you going to move forward with it? And then January is kind of sitting in the, okay, here it is. We're on the threshold. And February is really when, to me, 2026 energy hits next year. So, kind of keep that in mind as you're moving through this, that you are healed at a new level that you maybe can take the time to reflect on, because we have had the end of Neptune, Pisces. We've got the end of Uranus in Taurus. We've got the end of Chiron in Aries. We've got some big things that have moved on. And so we really, yeah, can kind of celebrate that. I would take the time to honor yourself and your journey.
Yeah, I think honoring the journey is definitely something when we go through so much. It seems like weekly here, but like, over the last over the last year, I think that is sort of the energy we're stepping into with Sagittarius is like truly looking back at everything. And I was even talking to my mom the other day and I was kind of like, I feel like I'm just scraping at whatever's coming around lately and sort of seeing what's coming up and taking the opportunities that come. But she was like, "You've done a lot in the last year." And I was like, "You know what? When I think about it, they may all be small things, but like that's what leads you to, start building foundations for things. It's always the small things. It has Knight of Pentacles energy to me, where it's like all of the seeds you've been planting. Like, yeah, he's not the fastest mover, and sometimes he needs a kick in the pants, but like most of the time, like he's only doing the things that he's pretty sure are going to be solid, right? He's setting the scene so that later on there's something to work from. You have a whole field as opposed to just one or two huge plants that could die. I feel like my brain goes back to my soil science and environmental science where it's like we're not doing monocrops around here. We're doing, we're making sure that we have biodiversity in this field, We're really doing whatever we can to have multiple streams of income, multiple opportunities. And I think it seems frustrating when they're all tiny things when you're just working away at it. But like, again, when all those seeds start to bloom, it creates a bigger picture. And I think we're all doing that in our own ways, whether it's emotionally, whether it's connections we're making with people, literal things we're planting, like whatever it is that you're doing to set yourself up. That's why this time is really good to celebrate, to look back and say, like, look at all the things I managed to do while I was also panicking and watching the world spiral. I also managed to do all of these small things, which is a big thing that you were doing anything at all. Really, it's a wonder that any of us are functioning, quite honestly.
Well, it makes me excited to see what the cards are that you've pulled. So I think we should jump in. What do you say?
Let's do it. What I really enjoy is these months where there's like random days on their own. So for the first 2 days of Sagittarius season, the 21st and the 22nd, I actually pulled the Empress, which I really enjoy for this energy because she's creative. She's bringing something new into the world. There's a lot of also like in a three energy, there's also this idea of collaboration and bringing people into like a partnership. And there's a lot of like exchanging. That's the word that's coming up is like there's a lot of exchanging of energy. But I think going from this Scorpio season, it's kind of like what Emily was saying, where you're taking all of these things that you're learning about yourself and that you're discovering, and then you're turning it into something. You're immediately turning that around. And so that idea that like art is created from a space of like pain or processing, like I think this is what the energy is trying to shift us into. So it's a way of transitioning. So we're not just going right from like, you know, crying in our beds to celebrating. We're not, that's not a transition. I mean, some of us do that, but I would say that like for the most part, you need something to get you out of bed. So it's this idea that's coming through is like, it's whatever the spark is that's going to get you excited to go back to something that brings you joy. It doesn't have to be like creating art. It can be anything that brings you joy, even if it's inviting people out to dinner, like whatever it is that gets you connecting and feeling creative and inspired. Um, but this does feel like there's something that you could be starting right now that just needed that spark, where it's something that you've had in the back of your head that maybe you've been thinking about, you're not really sure, but all of a sudden you get this confidence, this like boost of like, this is how I'm going to do it. The idea of the Empress is taking the idea and then making it material, like turning it into something that is earthly. And so if you think about it, you have the two before it, the High Priestess, who's like channeling all the information, receiving everything. And then you have the three, the Empress, who's putting it into the earth. And then the four is the Emperor, who's going to make sure that there's like a foundation and that things are solid. So we're in a really good place in this energy to start off the month. And I feel like it plays into the rest of the month. And I think I'm glad that those 2 days are kind of separate because it gives us that moment of transition before we get like fully into the energy. But I think it's a really positive way to come out of Scorpio season.
Yeah, I think that is beautiful for this couple of days. It's like we feel the culmination under our feet. We feel like we have some of those tools at our disposal. On the 21st, what's interesting is the sun will be in Scorpio and it's going to oppose Uranus and Taurus, both at very final degrees. This is very impactful energy. But what's beautiful is that the sun at the same time is going to trine Neptune in Pisces. So there's also something so healing about that, that brings in the awareness of the lessons. It tenderizes that energy a little bit. And then, of course, the sun enters Sagittarius kind of late in the day on the 21st, about 8:36 p.m. Eastern. The moon will also be in Sagittarius. So then I feel like that emotional pull is kind of bringing us across the threshold. And then on the 22nd, we have Mercury retrograde. Unfortunately, it's still retrograde for a few more days, but it too is going to trine Saturn in Pisces. So we have so many trines. You're going to hear me talk about them ad nauseum come December. But it's such beautiful, supportive energy that really it talks to how are you building something of structure? How are you building something that is stable? And like you said, taking all of the pieces, all of the small stones that help you rebuild the foundation, I think that's a big part of what we're looking at. Mercury retrograde is also at the same time it's trining Saturn in Pisces, it's trining Jupiter in Cancer. So then we've got this huge grand water trine activated, which can make it emotional, but it can make it emotional not in the tower way. Like you said, it's almost like in the cleansing version. It's like the pulling the drain on the bathtub and letting the water finally go and serve a new purpose. On the 22nd, the moon is also going to enter Capricorn in late evening, early afternoon, about 5:50 p.m. Eastern. So overall, we're going from this like emotionally volatile, I think nothing really feels stable, into much more like grounded and inspired, but in a way that says, slow your roll. Don't go so fast. Don't bulldoze through this new energy. Because you're like literally crawling. I said something about like you're crawling out of the swamp and suddenly you remember you do have legs. Like, oh my God, I can walk. But you might not have walked in a while. And so it's going to feel weird. And Mercury is still retrograde. So like there's still some warning signs. You don't quite have everything in place. Like you said, it's a 3. There's a little more stability, but it's not as stable as a 4. So everyone's going to feel a little raw, a little reactive. Just, I would say, keep the peace as much more internally than trying to people please someone to make them feel comfortable. It's about keeping your own inner peace after all of the lessons that we've uncovered in this such loving Scorpio season.
Yeah, I think after the tower, and we got the tower and the death card in Scorpio season. So coming out of that, I
I
feel like
mean,
everything feels like a party, honestly. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm very like hesitant every time there's a positive card right out the gate. So we have the Ten of Pentacles, which is the culmination of all the material things you've been working towards. And I always like to say, like, even though the Ten of Pentacles is usually the end of the journey, everything coming together, I feel like it's just the journey of this year. Like, it may not be your life goals all showing up at once, but it's like some sort of tangible proof that you're on the right direction. So whether that's, having a contract come in or having a job or getting recognition for something that you've done, like something coming in where you're like, okay, this is the way to go. And there's often to me a community feeling. I mean, it is part of the card. Like there is a community feeling to the tens, especially the cups and the pentacles. Like I feel like that water and earth connection is like sort of always bringing in community in some way. And because we're coming in from the Empress, that energy I was saying, where it's like a collaborative energy, I do feel like this 10 of Pentacles, like I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a collaboration that brings through this sort of like energy or something anyways that involves other people. And because I think that's part of what we're realizing as a collective is moving forward. In order to make a foundation that's stable, we have to be connected to other people. I think we've all tried if you look at the world and the kinds of things that exist, a lot of people have tried to be an island and to just, do everything themselves. And it doesn't work because, like, you get no sick days, you get no time off, you get no breaks, you burn out. And I think more than ever, we're realizing where the strength is, where yes, you can have your own space within, a partnership or a collaboration or a job or a company or whatever. You need your own space to do your own thing. I think we all work creatively when we're able to have a bit of a bubble here and there, but also you need people to bring that back out to explore and bounce off ideas off of. And this energy feels like, because it's coming in, at the beginning of Sagittarius energy, I feel like it's having the energy of also a spark of, yes, there's proof that this is going to work. And so I'm now willing to put more energy into this. I trust it. And now I'm going to put more energy in. I'm fired up. I'm ready to start telling everyone about it. It's almost like a soft launch sort of feeling where, like, you get a little bit of a hint of, okay, this is going to work. Now I can put it out there and fully confidently speak and say, this is the thing I'm building from now. And that's what I'm feeling. It's not like we're done. It's like a launch pad in a way where you're getting something that is tangible. Like, it's like a yes from the universe. You can see it. There's money. There's something attached to it that it makes it worthwhile to take that next step and that leap of faith that you need to get it going. But yeah, it feels really good. And I think going into the holidays, who doesn't want a little extra spending money or something to celebrate, another reason to go out for a drink, another reason to make some good food and get together with people. And I think that's just going to come in different ways for every person. But I think we're all going to know it. The feeling that I get is that there's going to be something like the idea of it being something solid, where, again, this going back to the Empress, even if it's like a relationship, getting commitment from someone, or whatever it is that you're wanting to put your energy into, but you just need that solid thing. That's what this is like whatever you need for your own safety to move forward with something more exciting.
Yeah, that idea of moving from this like recalibration and slow build into let's start climbing back and find our momentum, getting the momentum back is a big part of this week for sure. We've got Mercury retrograde, but it's going to be conjunct Venus on the 24th. That really brings in this conversation about relationships and money and values. It's very emotionally honest. But because Mercury is still retrograde, I feel like at this point it's a little bit more reflective than decisive. So even though that old pattern might resurface, again, it's like, oh, but I've seen this before. I already have different tools this time, or I know where I'm going to plug this into the foundation to help me move through it. We also have this week, Saturn is going to station direct in Pisces. So that's the end of Saturn retrograde on the 27th. That's going to help because Saturn has been backpedaling in Piscean water. So what am I responsible to? I'm responsible to my own inner emotional landscape. That's really what's been the drive for this last little bit. But it came out of Aries where we were feeling all of this impassioned forward momentum. And then it was like a wet noodle slap to the face that said, oh, by the way, here's your inner emotional cave that you need to go sit in for 3 months. So, yeah, sitting down and untying knots is how this energy has felt. And I think that that's going to break free in some ways. We have a quarter moon in Pisces on the 28th. That's going to, again, help with some of that healing energy. Keep in mind, it's growing at this point. That's that waxing quarter moon. So releasing something, recognizing that it no longer serves. Mercury retrograde finally ends on the 29th. Granted, it stations direct that day. So that means it's backed all the way back into Scorpio as far as it's going to go. So we've got to wait about 12 days-ish before it finally moves completely back out of the shadow. We've got about a good solid week and a half to 2 weeks before we're into new territory again. So don't be surprised if some final things come up that need to be renegotiated, tied up. The email that bounced 3 weeks ago comes back, whatever that is, there'll be little things. Also on the 29th, we have Venus trining Neptune. This is really beautiful because it adds this creative, compassionate and also kind of a psychic amplification. It's beautiful energy. It can push you too far into delusion if you're not careful, but I think so many of us have been looking for a little glimmer. So give me some glimmers of hope that I think it'll feel really, really good. Overall, I feel like this is the week where things turn. There's some emotional depth. We've learned what we needed to, or we're at least integrating it as best we can. We've got some intuitive insights coming back. Saturn is done whipping us on the inside. We can start to see the action take place from what we're hoping for. And then Mercury returning to forward momentum. It's like we get to make progress. After being stuck at 2% speed, it's like we're moving back onto the highway almost. I had somebody I was talking to, I was like, it really felt in the middle of Scorpio season and retrograde, like, that car reference we've been talking about on our road trip. It was like there was a raccoon at the wheel. We were going in reverse around a roundabout with like our hair on fire, like spinning out of control on a back road somewhere. And now it's like, okay, we've maybe stopped and filled up with some gas, but we're going to be moving forward a little bit finally in the right direction.
I totally get that energy. I feel like that is exactly how it's been feeling. I think too, there's something about the 29th that just has been standing out to me. So I do feel like that's going to be a really good day. It's also a Saturday. So like there's something about it where I just feel like there's going to be some really good events, some really good shifts in the energy. And then from November 30th to December 6th, I pulled the 7 of Wands, which is kind of an in-between card for me. It's not good, it's not bad, but it's just, I think what we need at this point to anchor, like the word anchor keeps coming in. Stand your ground is another phrase that is used with this, where it's like, it's a fiery energy, but because it's a 7, it also has this like spiritual energy where it's putting yourself in a bubble and like really holding on to it. So let's think about it. Like we had the Empress, we had this thing that we're ready to move forward with. We get tangible proof. We get really excited. We're like, okay, this is going to work. Every time that happens, there's always someone or something that tries to change our minds, that tries to poke a little hole in our bubble, pop the bubble, tell us it's not going to work, even if it's ourselves. Coming in to say, oh, remember the last time you tried to do something that you enjoyed and it didn't work? Okay, maybe you shouldn't do it. Whatever it is that's going to try and sabotage is probably going to show up this week to be like, you know what? Maybe that's not for you. Or maybe that's it. Maybe you were just supposed to do it one time and that was it. Whatever it is that would normally pull you back, don't let that happen. And at the same time, it's like, this could actually just be a week where it's really challenging to do the thing. Like this could be the point that makes it like a make or break energy where it might be a little exhausting. There might be a lot of upfront work that's needed to get something going. All the stuff you hate doing. Maybe it's the paperwork and the contracts and all the stuff that would normally overwhelm you and make you second guess it. That's the stuff you got to push through because it is something worthwhile. There's this phrase that came through when I was pulling the cards, and it was like character building. Like we've done enough character building. I don't need any more character, but that's sort of what this week is. It's really trying to make sure that you know who you are. You know that you're capable and you've been through a lot. And again, this kind of brings in some of the energy Emily was talking about of like, you're not going to be experiencing it the same way you would have a year ago. You're a lot stronger. You have a lot more knowledge of yourself and like where you're going. But this is sort of like a test from the universe to say, how much are you willing to commit? Yes, this 10 of Pentacles is coming, but it's saying this is something now you're going to go all in. But going all in on anything is a little bit scary. And it does make us tend to spiral a little bit if we aren't entirely sure. We can never be entirely sure that something's going to work out. So whether this is a marriage or a job or a business, doesn't matter what it is, you can never 100% know, even if it's great at the time. But that's why it's worth it. If you're not sure either way, why not put all your energy into it? Why not believe that it's going to work? And that's where this 7 of Wands comes in, just to remind you to say, don't let those voices stop you. If this is something you need to move forward on, you feel it in your heart, then really do that. And I think something interesting this came up. I don't know if it was in a reading for someone or at some point that I had this card come up, and I've been working on holiday sort of themed stuff. The image on the card, which you'll see in my newsletter, if you don't have the Light Seers Tarot deck, it looks like a snow globe. because there's a seat and then she's in a bubble. And so this is just the way this came through from spirit when I saw that was that the holiday season, like this is the time for whatever you're doing, whether you have to launch it, you have to push past the doubts and put something out there. This is there for certain people listening or whoever it resonates with. This is the season for you to be doing this, whatever it is. Like, don't worry about it. Some people think I should probably wait till the new year. I don't want it to get lost in the holidays. It won't get lost. It'll get carried through the holidays. So that was the other message that came through. Like the holidays will carry it through to the next year. So it needs time to simmer with other people around. You need to be speaking about it. Like there's something about that energy of the wands. Like there's the fire to air sort of energy is what I'm feeling with this. So I would trust it and just start sharing it. Again, with the Ten of Pentacles, when you're saying now it's okay, you're all in. Now you can speak about it. The phrase I'm getting is they always give me references for my own stuff, but it's like if you've been doing something as a side hobby, let's say you've been doing art and you've been really hoping for it, and then you get this opportunity where you would have to do it full time. And you have to start saying, I'm an artist. And like that step into putting yourself out there and introducing yourself at a party instead of saying, oh, I do this and I also do this on the side. It's like, I'm an artist. That's the first thing that comes out of your mouth. It's like the first time you say something and you make it real. That's the feeling I get with this, but there's power in that with this season.
Oh, that's so perfectly spot on for this week. It's a lot. This is a very busy week, and I think it feels in some ways heavier than the previous week, but I think in good ways. Right away on November 30th, Venus moves into Sagittarius. So like you said, we've gone from this watery depth of healing, which we desperately needed without a doubt, but now it's moving into Sagittarius and it's going to move fast. That's a quickening. It gives you an energetic boost, but it makes you really bold. The feeling like they get big, but you can also blow things off easier. It's almost like they don't hit as hard. I always feel in Sagittarius, they don't really get slowed down by emotional arrows. It's like, yeah, okay, hit me with what else you got. And they kind of laugh it off and keep running. It's not such a big deal. It's big feelings, big spending. Venus and Sagittarius just makes everything bigger, faster, stronger. But then we still have this Jupiter trine. Oh, this is the whole thing. Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. Jupiter trine Saturn is great in that it is asking us to be emotionally responsible or to look at things, especially now that Saturn has moved direct. It's like, okay, I can understand now where I need to put that emotion aside in order to move forward. Venus, brand new into Sagittarius, is going to be sextile Pluto. And this is a good angle. It really represents harmony and opportunity. So where can I bury the past? I've transformed. I'm ready to move on. And then Uranus, sextile Neptune. That happens right away on December 2nd. So this is a cluster of like super supportive aspects that are asking for that moment of harmony and luck and grounding and emotional integration. And like you said, it's taking everything that you've learned and owning it, stepping into it and saying, this is who I am at the party. I am a sound healer. I am a medium. I am a psychic. I'm an artist. Whatever it is that you're claiming, fully step into it and claim it. There's also part of this that's really going to push that for you is the full super moon in Gemini on the 4th, which is like, say the soft part really loud. I remember specifically this Gemini full moon 3 years ago when we walked away from a family business on the full moon, because it's like you cannot hold back any longer. This is energy that's opposite of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is, yes, let's do it. And what's the long vision or version? Am I going to take a long distance trip? Am I going to learn a philosophy, but I'm going to go really deep into it and know all of the pieces and parts? Gemini is like, we don't care. Like, give me the highlights. Let's move through it and let's move on. I already know from past experiences that this pattern means X, Y, and Z, and I'm not tolerating it. And here I am and I'm moving on. That's the energy of this week. On top of it, though, I will say on the 5th, we have Lilith coming into play. And again, I haven't talked about Lilith, but both in Scorpio season and Sagittarius season, she is a major player. So Black Moon Lilith is a mathematical point. It is not an actual object. But what it represents in the chart as it's transiting is this divine feminine energy that is powerful. It is a little bit angry. It's not going to tolerate things. It's willing to use its power, use that force for good. And what's interesting to me is that it's opposite Uranus in Taurus. So here we have this Lilith in Scorpio, Uranus in Taurus. And to me, it's this feminine rage on a collective global scale. Think about this, pushing us out of old stuck patterns. I think this is going to come into play, and not to get political, but I do think this will come into play for a big portion of December in terms of Epstein files and releasing secrets and the fallout and what's real and what's not real. We have a lot of energy coming in asking us to discern things. This is some of the energy this week even. I've been told X, Y, and Z in the past, but I know from my experience, from my own connection to myself, that isn't always the truth. So what am I discerning that's real out of this situation? I think that starts to come into play, particularly on the 5th. That's kind of when that connection kicks off. It's going to hang. There's going to be a lot more coming up next week that I'll talk about it. But then on the 6th, Mercury, who's finally out of retrograde and moving back close to Sagittarius, it is at a trine with Jupiter on the 6th. And this also feels kind of like that third and final wave of breakthroughs, because they've met up 3 times. We have so many things that have met up 3 times that are now starting to come to an end. This is one of the first ones. So keep an eye on ideas clicking into place, conversations being like, oh, this ties back to that thing from before, and opening the doors in some ways. It's a big week. I think, like you said, things will come up emotionally, but I think on that 7 of Wands kind of way, it's not good, not bad. It's just maybe sticky.
That full moon totally makes sense why the air energy was coming through for me so much. So I do feel like there's going to be, like you said, a lot of breakthroughs and ideas pushing us forward, or pushing through with those ideas, carrying those ideas forward. Then for December 7th to the 13th, I pulled the 10 of Cups. So not only do we have the 10 of Pentacles, this is why I was very skeptical. I almost put them back, as I do with any cards, apparently. But with the 10 of Cups, this is more about your emotional fulfillment. So, I feel like the 7 of Wands was coming in, just have a reality check so that you'll trust when this emotional fulfillment, when you start to feel the energy of like, this is real, I have brought this in for myself, good things can happen and stick and stay. We kind of need to be tested before we'll trust that. So where we might have the tangible thing, like maybe you sign the contract or like you get paid for something, or there's something that comes in to make you feel like it's viable in like a material way, whatever it is. This is more in like an emotional way where you're going to have the validation from people around you, or, you'll be strengthening your deepest connections and creating a lifestyle that really feels good for you. And that's a combination of the two. You need to have material, like whether we say love is not enough, no matter what we say, we do actually have physical needs as humans, unfortunately. And so that's why I think it's not a bad thing to be focused on both the material and the emotional, and having the material without the emotional also not that satisfying. So the fact that we're getting both of these together, but we're getting that little bit of a reality check in between to be like, let's not take it for granted. There is work to do. We have to follow through with the things we're healing, with the things that we've had come up as patterns multiple times. We have to be in our self-awareness when we're moving forward. Like, yes, it's good to celebrate. We're in Sagittarius season. Having the 10 of Pentacles and the 10 of Cups in Sagittarius is a great thing because there's people around us most of the month to be celebrating with. But we can't get too carried away in that Sagittarius energy of being like, everything's perfect and this is it forever. We have to kind of bring it in a little bit, but we also do need to express those positive things. We need to share all of the positive feelings we have for people. We need to make sure that we're not sweeping those under the rug too, just to get ahead. We need to make sure that we're balancing the two things. We can be really focused on what we're doing materially and what we're manifesting and what we're working towards in terms of success and our plans for the the next phase, but we also need to make sure that we're nurturing the relationships and make that worthwhile. So there is that back and forth. And speaking of like holiday season, it's like, yeah, bringing the gifts is great, but also making sure you spend time with people. Dropping a gift at someone's door and running away, not exactly the nicest experience. Like, thank you for the gift, but I actually invited you to my home to spend time. You never know what each person values more. And it's really hard, I think, in terms of like, I think Venus energy is going to be really intense around now. And so I feel like that's what I'm feeling is like that value and material stuff and harmony and all the things we're trying to balance, but also recognizing that we want to celebrate. So let's try to find a middle ground so that we're all able to celebrate and not feel like any one person is showboating or anything like that. We're all celebrating everyone. Everyone has something to bring to be celebrated together. Um, but yeah, I feel like there's something around this that has a very earthy feeling to it, even though it's a card of cups. It has an earthy feeling where it's going to be very grounding. So I think that there's going to be connection back to that Ten of Pentacles where it's a continuous energy, but this is where it hits you, where you're like, oh my God, this is real. I'm trusting it in my body and my soul. Like I was mentally being like, wow, this is working originally, but now I'm feeling it. I feel very grounded. I can trust this. This is actually a thing. I can't believe it's happening, but okay. Again, with the being skeptical thing, like I don't have to be skeptical. Now I can trust this. This is the new reality. I'm claiming it and I'm going to move forward cautiously, but with excitement.
Oh, that's great energy for this week. I feel like it is a little intense to start with, and it's almost because we're still dealing with some of those repercussions from the full moon. And then it gets easier as the week moves on. So, yes, checking in with someone, asking them what they actually emotionally need versus assuming or rushing through something because you've got a to do list a mile long. And we've got to keep that part of us that reminds ourselves to slow down and be present. This is also the first holiday season we've had in 3 years. It hasn't had Mercury retrograde in the middle of it. So that's huge. Like that already means that communication is going to look different, travel's going to feel better, easier. So it's almost a well-oiled machine and we kind of don't know what to do with it. So you have the capacity to burn out, to go overboard. We've got Mercury trine Saturn. And again, this is like number 3. We have so many trines, particularly this week, that are like number 3 of 3, where we've been experiencing this before the retrograde, during, and now after. So again, this brings in this feeling of a need for patience, but you've read a lot of the fine print, right? You've done the work. So you can trust it, but you're still skeptical. This is where that inner voice comes in and is like, is it the 10? Is it? And it's like, no, you can trust that this is worth moving on, worth moving into. But then we've got Mars in Sagittarius is going to be square Saturn on the 8th, but Saturn is going direct now and it's in Pisces. So it is emotional. It is where you've done the work, you've been responsible. Mars in Sagittarius is excited, just like Venus, burn through everything as fast as we can, as far as we can, for as long as we can. But it's going to be a little bit of an emotional gut check of like, oh God, where have I overcommitted, overspent, overdone? It just brings that awareness back up to you. We also have this like Lilith Uranus tension that's continuing, and this feeling of personal liberation, not wanting to play small anymore. There's so much discomfort under the surface. You literally have to let yourself out of the box. And particularly as women, I think this is going to be a big issue for us moving into December that may get some pushback. There may be a feeling of like, whoa, 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 who are you to step out and act that way? And it's like, bring it. I have nothing left to burn. I've been to the shadows for all of Scorpio season and 2025. So I'm doing it. There is a feeling around Neptune finally stationing direct in Pisces on the 10th. So this is where you get, I think, a little bit of that grounding energy you were picking up. Not that, I mean, watery Neptune and watery Pisces doesn't say grounding, but what it does say is now we're not in retrograde anymore. We're moving forward for the final time back through the last degrees of Pisces. And that does again bring hope. It moves our emotional landscape. It moves our intuition. We can start to feel like we can trust ourselves again. We're starting to see the fruits of our labor. And that again feels positive and like we can put down the foundation. We can put in the hard work because it looks like it's actually going to pay off. We have Mercury opposite Uranus on the 10th. So this is where we have to do the mindset work again. Uranus is in retrograde still in Taurus, and the systems, the security, the safety that we used to rely on is not there, but it's okay to replace it with something. And I think this is the first time you may start to kind of trust that. We have a Mercury trine Neptune. This is also number 3 of 3. This comes up on the 11th. And it's a quick moving energy. Just be aware, again, like psychic insights, some clarity, possibly your dreams coming in strong, and listen to your gut instincts because they're going to be on high alert. So you might walk into a situation and your gut is going to be like, mm-mm. And everything in your mind might override it. Well, this is different and it's different. And this is like, trust yourself. Really remember that. Because then right away, Mercury enters Sagittarius also on the 11th in the evening. Things are going to get bigger, louder, faster all the way through the rest of 2025. I think it moves signs literally on New Year's Day. So this will continue for us through the end of the year. The 12th, we have the moon in Libra, and it's just going to add a little bit of that people pleasing, watch your boundaries. And this is coming in particularly as we're getting closer to the final holiday weekends. You may want to throw the extra thing. Oh, I can do an extra dozen cookies, or I can do an extra party, whatever it is. Just be aware of that. I think particularly the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th are going to ask you to lean into your own discernment to see what's real versus what's performative. Where have you been wearing that mask that's 10, 15 years old that says, this is how I do things, and this is what's expected of me during the holidays, versus what I actually want to do, or what is going to help me get further ahead, what's going to support me moving through this. And you may be a little more emboldened to do that because of so many things in Sagittarius. So then on the opposite side, be aware that there could be emotional fallout, and just recognize where you are with that. Are you okay to hold that tension, or if it's going to be something that you need to apologize for come Capricorn season. It's a interesting week. I would definitely say a little more tense than the one before, but doable.
I like that idea. But whatever you feel comfortable with, if you're going to do it, then just know that there might be consequences. And I think we need to always have that in mind. So for the 14th to the 20th, I pulled the Queen of Pentacles, which I think is Capricorn energy coming through. Again, very grounded, very earthy. And I think particularly the Queen of Pentacles, for me, it's like a comfort card. She has her eyes closed in this one. She's holding onto her pentacle. She's not hiding it away. I feel like she's the polar opposite of the Four of Pentacles that's like clutching the purse and really like afraid and in the scarcity mindset. Whereas the Queen of Pentacles in this deck anyways, like has her eyes closed. She's just loosely holding one pentacle. She's like, I got this. And she's also the one that people come to for that comfort. When they need help, when they need support, they come to her. So if you are that person, this kind of ties into what Emily was saying with the boundaries. Make sure that people aren't taking advantage of that. I think this is a good time to be generous if you're able to, whether it's with your time, your skills. If you're the one who's really good at doing something that people enjoy for the holidays, whether it's something that you cook or decorating, whatever it is that you're good at, if you have the capacity, it's a great time to do that and to contribute. But at the same time, if you're already very maxed out, it's also okay to say, this year, I just can't do it. But I think this is sort of a sign that things are stable. It was like Spirit's way of saying, yeah, those tens are sometimes hard to trust, but it is stable. You know that you have this, you know that you have the experience, you have the skills, you've been working towards this for a long time, and you don't have to second guess it. You can close your eyes and just chill, just trust that it's coming through. Yes, there's still going to be challenges, and there are going to be conflicts and things to smooth over, but there's a certain quiet confidence that comes with this where you can handle it. Yes, there may be challenges. Yes, there may be things that we're not exactly thrilled about, but you have that foundation, you have the confidence, you have all of those pieces that make it easy to say, okay, what else do you have? I will solve it. The problem solving energy that comes through. I feel like for me, particularly when this card comes up, which it does a lot, like in readings or people do readings for me, this is the card that comes up as me. But I have a lot of Capricorn energy because I am a Capricorn sun and rising and Mercury. And the Capricorn, like Mercury energy for me, that's what I feel with this, the ability to take the chaos and like put it into something that's like makes sense. So even if people are throwing nonsense at you, which the queen tends to be an absorber of things from other people, you're able to be like, okay, this seems like a crisis, but really it's just XYZ. That you have that ability and that higher vision right now at this time. You have that strong intuition in your body, trusting your gut, like Emily was saying, that energy still translates to this. But it's this calm ability. And like sometimes I have this happen to me where people are panicking around me and I'm looking like, I don't understand why we're panicking. This is all we have to do. To me, it just seems like a very clear-cut situation. So you may experience some of that where people's emotions might be really high. There may be a lot of fiery energy around you. And you may be the one being like, guys, it's literally just a matter of this. Or people are fighting over something. It's like, we have another one in the garage. It's like, you may be the one to be the voice of reason. That's sort of the phrase that's coming through. But I think you're also going to be feeling really good and really at peace right now because things are going well for you, because you're accepting that you're in a new phase and that things are moving forward. You're going to almost be realizing, oh, I'm not the one that's struggling as much as I thought I was. I'm doing better than I thought I was doing. And that's the point where you're closing your eyes and holding on to that pentacle that you have, knowing that you are onto something here. There's something that is moving you forward. And there's a sort of peace that comes with that the queen holds in her energy.
I think she's the perfect archetype of the energy that you're meant to embrace this week. Because there does feel, from an astrological standpoint, like a little unsteady, a little foggy, but there's also like opportunities for expansiveness. I feel like the triggers are going to come, both adult triggers, inner child triggers, all of those things. But there's this energy, this momentum that's going to break through it this time. Like you said, I'm looking around and I can see everyone else having a reaction that I don't feel like I need to, or that I don't need to buy into this time. And so there's that part of it that feels like a reality check before the new moon. I'm letting go of carrying all that worry, of all that drama, of all that nonsense, because I can close my eyes and trust. And I know that we're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. But also to give yourself the flexibility and freedom that can fluctuate and change minute by minute, day by day. So ride that wave and don't feel like you're winning or losing, just that you are aware of it as it's coming in, and embrace that Queen of Pentacles. We've got Mars square Neptune on the 14th. Squares aren't great. They usually bring up tension and conflict. Like, who's going to win? Is it going to be my Mars and Sagittarius that's running past emotion, bulldozing through them like, I've got it, it's no big deal, versus Neptune, which is still hanging out in Pisces, that could not possibly be any more intuitive. This creates that foggy illusion, the need to possibly escape into old patterns, into drugs, alcohol, food, like whatever it is to avoid what you want to experience. Listen to your instincts. I think again, it's finding that peace in the middle, trusting that it will pass really fast and that I have new tools that can help me this time. Another big one that runs all week is Chiron and Jupiter. And Chiron in Aries is square Jupiter in Cancer. And our wound right now is around self-expression and exposure. And do I trust myself? And how do I feel about being seen in terms of who I really am? And here it is, Jupiter in Cancer, which is family of all things. And do my loved ones see me? What is my emotional vulnerability with family and friends versus my big dreams? So saying the thing out loud could feel big and super scary. But then you've got that Mars square Neptune that's like, blow through it. Who cares? Like maybe your intuition isn't 100%, or maybe it's going to blow over faster than you ever thought. Mars is going to move into Capricorn on the 15th. And this brings in some of that queen energy for sure, because your ambition, your drive, all of those things are going to get really rooted in this feeling of the future. And I think she's going to help anchor some of that between the mid-month and New Year's. But what can also happen, not to be party pooper adjacent, but I think sometimes Capricorn is like, we got to stop the celebrating. We got to put it all away. It's a mess. It's clutter. Let's get back to basics. And so there can be a feeling right now here in the middle of the month of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. All that happy, exciting celebrating I was doing, we actually need to get to work. And so despite that, I would say, don't forget to still enjoy. You're going to have this inner conflict. Venus, your heart is still going to be in Sagittarius. Mars is going to be in Capricorn. Like, pull it together. We got to go for the bigger vision. You're going to feel some of that tension. Again, embrace that Queen of Pentacles. Sit in the expansiveness with your eyes closed, with what you've experienced this year. I think this is going to be a really good week, particularly with the new moon in Sagittarius on the 19th, to think about big picture and goal setting and intentions and all of those things, particularly with Sagittarius, right? It's like the sky's the limit. But to also think of all that you've overcome this year. Like you said, Andrea, it could be 100, 1,000 small things that still add up to a really big pile. But if you don't take the time to embrace them somehow, to spend time recognizing them, appreciating them, have you really integrated them? Neptune and Saturn are also going to lightly be squaring that new moon. It's not like an exact degree, but it's close. So this is going to bring some of that hopeful, grounded energy. And then the sun is going to square Neptune. Neptune is just a big player this week, but that's more confusion, over-promising, emotional overwhelm. So just be careful, avoid burnout, stay in that queen energy. Like I said, the perfect archetype for what needs to support you through this week.
I love how that fit together with the astrology for the week. That totally makes sense. That Mars and Capricorn. Definitely the energy of feeling where she's gonna pull through. She's gonna make sure things come together. She's gonna be the one saying, let's get real here. I think sometimes that party pooper adjacent energy sneaks in, whether you like it or not. But yeah, there's something about this next card. So for this one, it's just for one day, just for December 21st. It's sort of our transition into solstice and into Capricorn season. I pulled a major arcana. I pulled the 20, the judgment card, and I kind of really enjoy this one. This seems to come up a lot in this either Sagittarius or Capricorn energy because it's very reflective. It's very much like having your own sort of judgment day. So it continues from what Emily was just saying, like really reflecting on everything you've been through. And I love how in this deck, it really places the emphasis on seeing yourself as your higher self, as this better version of yourself than what you give yourself credit for. And going from the energy of the queen with her eyes closed, holding the pentacle, if you just hold that energy a little bit longer and then really take some time to integrate some of those things you've learned in the last year to really boost up that confidence that you already have from having those 10 cards come through, from having these things really start to solidify a new reality. And if we just zoom out a little bit more and we remember that this is a 9-year, next year is a 1 year, the reason you can trust that it's real is because it just makes sense. We're going from a 9-year into a 1 year. The one is when the new stuff starts going again. You're in a new cycle. So it makes sense that you would have hints of that coming in now. You would have that forming at this point. It took us, like Emily said, a while to get going this year, but it's almost been like a fast track where if we try to think like, oh my gosh, it's already Sagittarius, it's November. I could have sworn 2 weeks ago was April. Like I was actually pulling together a bunch of stuff for a market and looking at the work that I made this year, even like individual prints that I made and the ones that I have framed that I'm like putting aside. I made these in March or I made these in June and like it's already November. I feel like I just made these and yeah, it's been months. And so if you start doing that and really collecting all those little tidbits and giving yourself that boost of like, I have done a lot of evolving and changing, transforming this year. We've had a couple tower cards even in the last couple months really to drive that point home, whether we liked it or not. You know, we've had a lot of opportunities to accept the change and go with it. And I think if we have done that and we have allowed the change to happen and we have taken these little, even if it's mini leaps along the way to trust and just try new things, it is shaping up to be a whole solid new chapter for us. And I think solstice is a beautiful time to do that. We're getting into our gaining light energy. We're getting into this point where the days are going to start getting longer and things are going to look a little bit better bit by bit. If we really stay true to that Queen of Pentacles and we stay true to that knowing that we have in our intuition, in our bodies, in our hearts, that things are changing. And as long as we are stubbornly using that Seven of Wands to just ignore all the people trying to poke holes in this theory, all the things that we have coming forward in Sagittarius, giving this really cool opportunity to be celebrating the people that we love, but also building a new version of ourselves and testing it out. We're taking it for a trial run. Like, you're going to be around a lot of people. And it's this opportunity to really be like testing out a character. I used to joke when I was going on a bunch of first dates that I would just try new personalities when I would go out and be like, who am I going to meet today? Who knows? And who cares, right? And when you have that energy of what's the worst that can happen if I just say, yeah, I'm an artist, or yeah, I'm a sound healer, or yeah, this is what I am. Why not own it now before the new year so that by the time the new year comes, you're already fully in that embodied version of it? And I think there's a fun way to also tackle these practical things that we need to do with that blend of Sagittarius and Capricorn, especially near the end of the month here, where we're now jumping into the Capricorn energy where we can make these things happen. We can see the plan. We can have that grounded intuition of like, I know that this is going to work and this is how it's going to work. This is the best way to go forward, or this is the opportunity to jump on first. Yeah, there's just this really exciting play between the two energies right now.
I love that card, Judgment. This is a point where, and again, I don't feel like this happens often, but we have not only the sun, but also the moon in Capricorn on solstice. So there is this unification sort of between your inner emotional landscape and what you're being asked to step into in terms of self and identity. And then Venus, who is still in Sagittarius, is square Saturn in Pisces. This can bring up, like, am I asking for too much? Am I doing too much? Am I getting too big for my shoes kind of energy? But it also is important to remember when you were talking about some of this energy, we tend to envision so much of what we're going to say or do or experience in our mind first. And so often we maybe compromise and say, well, I guess I can't do that. It wasn't meant to be. And we feel really bad and we judge ourselves because it didn't happen. And when we finally share that journey out loud, inevitably a friend or someone will reflect back, I can't believe you even considered doing all that. That is so much. It's so much better off now that it's a little less than what you thought it should have been. The version you built was too much. And I think with so much Sagittarius energy leading up to this, it may feel like a personal letdown somehow. You're going to be judging yourself the harshest because it was built up to this huge thing in your mind, versus what would actually work in reality is a simplified, back to basics, keep it moving forward, Saturn, Capricorn type energy. So, yeah, how much have you accomplished in the 3 months that were 2025? What are your plans for next year? What have you shed? Really take time to acknowledge those wins because it can be so easy to blow by them. Decide what you're leaving behind. I think that's going to be a beautiful thing to release, particularly on the shortest day of the year. And prioritize, what am I looking to bring with me that matters? I didn't realize even mattered, but now that I've discovered it, is something I can't let go of. And really to slow down because we've had such a fast moving Sagittarius season. Truly sit in the present, sit with the light, recognize where does the sun set on the shortest day so that by the time summer comes, you can see how much the sun has moved, how much you've moved, how much has changed. It's important, I think we've lost touch in some ways with that ancestral part of ourselves that would mark these huge occasions, but we can come home and we can flip on the lights and we're not in that dark womb. So I just invite you to take that time, not judge yourself for any of it, but and be in the space of I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing, and It's not punishment. None of it is punishment. It's where I'm meant to be. You know?
Yeah, I feel like the judgment and like what you were just saying, it all comes down to just the acceptance and the presence and being in it. I think sometimes we get it, like Emily was saying, we get in our heads so much. I do that to myself all the time where I create this whole big thing in my head where there's like deadlines and it's like a whole big thing. And I just imagine that there's all these people waiting for stuff and it's really just me. And I'm like, who made this rule? Me, I did. And no one else even knows this happened. And by the time, like Emily said, by the time I share it with someone, they're like, that's insane. Or they'll say, well, if you had done that, you wouldn't have had time to do this other thing that you did. And I think there's always things like that happening, but they all happen so quickly. And so they seem small. But that's where that snowball effect happens, right? Where you're pushing it along and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on, one step at a time. But now I have this giant snowball and it's actually something people can see and acknowledge and point to. And I didn't even notice how hard it was because it's just rolling along, right? So I think the other piece that I want to bring in that was sort of coming in as an overall energy, I didn't pull an oracle card this month because this was sort of like the message that came through, but it was saying like the things that are easy, that seem really simple, that you dismiss about yourself are the gifts. When something is easy for you, there's always someone who would struggle to even come up with the concept of what you're doing. And I think we tend to compare a lot. And there's a lot of like comparison where we're like, oh, well, mine is so different from what other people are doing. It's not what people want. But that's the whole thing. People sometimes don't know what they want until they see it. And I think that's one of the things they're trying to really reinforce before we get into this full on new chapter. We have this new thing we're doing. Make sure that it's you in it, because that's the only way you are going to be able to carry it forward and make it sustainable. If it's not something that's you, that you're not putting your heart and soul into it, then your heart and soul is going to be still looking for something else, some other way for that to come out. So the more you can trust that even if there's something you're doing that's very different from what you're seeing around you, it's meant to be that way. That's the whole point of starting something new, starting fresh, starting this new thing for yourself, whatever that might be. Even if it's a relationship that looks different from other people do. There's something that came in my head I forgot about this when I was tuning into this. I don't know if this is like something that's for specific people that are listening or something, but they were showing me different areas of life. Like everyone's at different stages of life too. Some people are already fully in their careers, they're already thriving. So that's not where their focus is. But they were saying, even if you're doing things for your own relationships where you decide to have separate bedrooms, like that came up so weirdly strong. Where it was like, even in relationships, if you're doing something non-traditional or there's something else that's not traditional in friendships, or if you're solo traveling, or is there something you're doing, anything that's out of the ordinary, don't question yourself. Again, that Seven of Wands, I think, was coming up as also like an overall theme of just stick to your guns, do what you know is best for you. And then the crazy thing about this is they're showing me, because there's so many big, huge collective societal shifts happening, you're probably just at the beginning of something that everyone else is going to follow suit later. I was seeing like with this relationship stuff, like there's this energy of people needing sleep and health and all these other things that actually contribute to a better relationship. There's all these things that we're just starting to do studies now. Same with the way we earn money, the way we value different kinds of work, different industries are growing. Like if you're doing something that you're like, this is weird, no one else is doing this, but it's working for you, and you got those signs early in the month, you had the money coming in, you had the contracts coming in, you had that emotional fulfillment coming in, keep doing it. Other people are going to be looking at you later like, wow, she really knew what she was doing. If you look at someone, even like Jane Fonda, she's been getting arrested for decades, saying stuff that we're just now starting to come around to, like, oh my God, she's been right this whole time. There's a lot of examples that you can see where very early on there was somebody who was ostracized or thought of as being really out there, but now they're just the norm. And you're like, wow, that's always the way anything happens. So really trust that if there's something that's really coming from within you that you're like, I have to do this thing, trust that, because chances are people are going to be really excited to see someone doing it. And you're going to see a lot of people following behind you if you do that.
I have to give a shout out to my massage therapist. Her podcast is On and Off the Table. And she was talking with her co-host about why people come to get a massage and expect it to hurt. Like, just get your elbows in there, like just make it painful. They expect to be rolled out and tortured. And she's like, when did we learn to expect that this thing we're supposed to do to feel better about ourselves is actually supposed to hurt so bad that we practically want to come off the table and then be sore for a few days. Why does it have to be hard? Why do we have to pick the way to do things that are what everybody else is doing or that it's meant to be difficult? I think there's a big part of us learning that you said, don't dismiss it because it's easy. I think that is so true. If it works for you, don't dismiss it. If it's easy, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means that it aligns and works for you. And with this Pluto and Aquarius, we're only in the beginning stages, but it's all about letting your freak flag fly. Like, we're going to have a gajillion individuals that are doing it in a million different ways, and each one of them is right. And we have to also say that's okay. How do we come together? How can we learn from each other and share that? But also, don't punish yourself. I think that judgment card is so perfect for the end of the year and for really looking at what you're willing to take in and going forward.
I also wanted to bring in, we've been talking about not doing more than we need to and really being aware of our own boundaries. And so I just want to know if you have anything you're adding onto your plate for the rest of the season. I know for me, I'm just opening up a few spots for readings. I'm sort of in the energy of the people that have been wanting readings, have been reaching out, or they've been finding me. And I'm just going to continue on that energy. I already have a lot of art stuff and other commitments on my plate. So I'm not adding any more exciting end of the year offerings this year, which is a little bit scary for me. I like having something for the end of the year, for the new year, but I just feel like we're all sort of in a collective pause energy. But the people who need guidance are welcome to do so. I do have a few spots open, but that's sort of where I'm sitting. The only other thing I have coming up is it's actually in January. I was smart and didn't put anything at the end of the year for the winter recharge. I put it still in Capricorn season at the beginning of the season, but it is in January instead of on the 8th. Not even the first week, because I know me. It'll take a while to get back into the flow, but that's the only thing I really have coming up. So if you want something to sort of get connected in the new year and connect with a few folks who are also doing the same and connecting in with the earth energy and seeing what sort of things come through, we'll be gathering on the 8th in the evening at 7 o'clock Eastern, so 4 PST and all of the other time zones. But I feel like that's going to be a really nice way to all come back into that centered, intuitive energy in the new year. What about you, Emily? What do you have going on?
Well, when we started talking about the energy, I was like, oh, okay, Spirit. I see you leading us right into this discussion because, yeah, we talked about this off the air before we started recording, how both of us have felt just kind of put through the ringer this year in some ways. Like you said, that we've done so many new and exciting things, and the energy feels different. I'm not feeling like I have the capacity to do illuminated horoscopes or even planning another big Akashic release for the first part of December. And I think I'm going to open my books for some psychic and card pull readings for people that are looking for guidance, particularly moving up to solstice. And then I have a big new release of sacred objects coming up on the 1st of December. I just did the numerology and it's a 10, so that feels really good. There will be just a little preview because you're listeners. I have some antlers. I have mule, deer, and white-tailed deer antlers that have been wrapped in leather. I have silk. I have alpaca. I have wool. They're just these beautiful objects created with a lot of intention under very specific astrological days. Sometimes the objects themselves call to me that, no, today's the day, and I don't even really know why until I'm working with them. So those objects will be going up on December 1st, as well as some new altar cloths. There were some that dropped, been secret last month, and they already sold. I'm so grateful to those of you who listen and purchase those. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was the best surprise ever to have those received so positively. So there will be many more of those coming. And right now I'm just feeling called to continue to put my energy into these sacred objects. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing readings or releasing other Akashic things coming forward. I'm just trusting my intuition that they may be serving a bigger purpose after the first of the year or as we move into the energy of next year. We'll, of course, record our Gaining Light episode, and I'm really excited to talk about the fact that that's that fire horse. I've been doing so much research about fire horse, and it's an incredibly exciting year that's coming. Doesn't mean it's not going to have its own challenges, but it's going to feel very different from the wood snake. Very, very different. So please, of course, stay subscribed to my newsletter. That link is in the bio. That'll be the best way to keep on top of what I've got releasing. There'll be probably even a last minute release before the holidays of anything else I can get finished. So if you're looking for a gift for a loved one or something to treat yourself, please keep those in mind. And of course, if you're anywhere near Andrea, please be sure to attend some of her incredible holiday shows that are coming up. Her prints are spectacular. She's got some incredible work that even I don't understand when she's doing engravings that are over the top beautiful, and the process and the thought behind them is incredible and so poignant. You would be really lucky to have a piece of her artwork in your home. So I feel like we're both stepping into this artsy chapter, and it feels good. It feels scary to say it out loud, just like all of the energy we just talked about. But I think we have to own it and lead by example and give all of you beautiful listeners the courage to also step into what's calling you and embrace it wholeheartedly.
Thank you for those kind words, Emily. And I'm so excited. I, as Emily, have been cheered behind the scenes, like with all of her altar claws and her beautiful things. Like they blow my mind. I think about them all the time, even when I'm not talking to Emily. I sit there just seeing them in my head because she gives me little sneak peeks when we're doing these recordings. We do a little bit of show and tell usually when we're connecting. But I have seen one little sneak peek of the antlers that she's showing me another one now. Oh my God, that is incredible. No, honestly, you need to be doing the refresh, waiting for these things to come out, because it was actually incredible how quickly the first release went through and people purchased them. I think the beautiful thing about Emily's work is that, like, people find what they need. Like there's so much intention in every piece. And I think it's like the calling that's coming to Emily is like from the person that's meant to have it. It's like she's picking up on their energy. So I'm really excited for that. I do love that Emily and I are both on this journey at the same time of this transition where we're still honoring the spiritual work that we're doing, but we're really channeling our energy into art. And I think, um, as somebody who's studied more modern art history, especially, like the fact that when there's political change and there's a lot of shifts in society, the artists are the people look to. Whether they will admit it or fund it is a whole other story, but that is where people look traditionally, either for comfort or for solidarity. Printmaking, I will say, has always been part of resistance and like protest. And I think the more we can just look at the artists around us and even just the local businesses in general, the more the overall big structures are crumbling. It's the people in your community that are going to band together. So when you're doing your holiday shopping, not to sound like an advertisement, but I live in a community where they actually honor a lot of the small businesses. They all support each other. Everybody goes to the main street to all the small businesses to shop and support. And it's like, yeah, we have the box stores, but most people, if you ask them where to find something, I've done this just out of curiosity sometimes. Just ask people where to look, and almost every single person tells me an individual store and the person to ask. I love that about small communities, and even in big cities, like every neighborhood sort of has that. So the more you can really ground yourself in community, I think that goes along with a lot of the other messages we've had this month. But it also ties into what Emily and I are each experiencing, where we really want to have these objects and these things that connect us with the person who's going to receive it. They're the really special bond. Like anytime I know who has purchased one of my prints and like the home that it's going to, like I remember every single story, like of when someone has purchased one of my prints and what they said connected them to it. I hold on to those things a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that is the magic of art and intuition and all the things coming together, which I've always had on my podcast. I've always kind of had that creativity and then the spirituality, and they are the same to me. It's the same energy. It's just which direction it flows, but it's the same sort of energy.
Oh, thank you for that. It's um recognizing, I think, and witnessing both of us in this transition has been so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to walk this path with you. And again, to bring it home to celebrate episode 100. And I can't wait to see what you create between now and the end of the year. So I hope everyone has also subscribed to Andrea's newsletter so you can see her beautiful prints and the work. And of course, she always is so generous in the energy reports that she shares. And we're excited. We ourselves have to record 2 more episodes in December. We have Gaining Light, which who knows what will look like. We'll see when we get there. And then we'll also record Capricorn season. So we'll see each other quite a bit and have a busy month. But thank you to all of you who have been listening, continue to listen. We wish you all the best moving into this crazy busy Sagittarius season. Enjoy it. Get outside, have fun, embrace the wildness that is Sagittarius, and don't forget to slow down and be present. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.